My name's Ethan Cole, and I grew up in a small town called Maplewood, Ohio. It's the kind of place that barely makes it onto maps: one main street with two diners, a gas station that doubles as a gossip hub, and a courthouse that looks more like a church than a government building. I've lived here my whole life, and for most of it, I figured I'd never leave. You learn everyone's face in a town like this. You wave to people you don't even like, because chances are you'll see them again before the week is over. People say nothing ever happens in Maplewood. Maybe that's true for them. But for me, everything that mattered, every choice, every heartbreak, every moment that changed the course of my life, it all happened right here, and most of it started the summer I met her. I was 22, just out of community college, still living with my mom on the edge of town. My dad had left when I was 12, and it was just the two of us after that. Mom worked long shifts at the diner, the kind of work that left her with sore feet and tired eyes. I worked odd jobs, construction when I could get it, landscaping, hauling junk. Nothing permanent, nothing that felt like a future. That summer was hot, one of those sticky Midwestern summers where the air feels like syrup. I remember the first time I saw her, because even now, years later, the memory burns like sunlight through a dirty window. She was standing outside Marley's Market, the old grocery on Main Street. A faded blue sundress, a paperback tucked under her arm, hair pulled up in a loose bun. She looked out of place, like someone had dropped a painting right into the middle of Maplewood. Her name was Grace Whitmore. I didn't know it yet, of course. All I knew in that moment was that something in me shifted. "Hey, Ethan," called Mark Duffy, a guy I'd gone to high school with who now bagged groceries at Marley's. He tossed me a wave as I walked past, but I barely registered him. My eyes were still on her. Grace glanced up, just briefly, and for a second her gaze caught mine. Not long, maybe 2 seconds. But I swear the world tilted. Then she looked away, walked inside the store, and I was left standing there on the curb like an idiot. That's the thing about small towns, strangers stand out. I hadn't seen her before, and I knew everyone in Maplewood. By the end of the day, I was asking around. "Whitmore?" Mom repeated when I mentioned her that night over dinner. "Oh, honey, that's the new family moved into the Miller place. From Chicago, I think. Single mom and her daughter. She's about your age." Her daughter. Grace. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about her, the way she carried herself, like she belonged to a different world entirely. A world bigger than Maplewood, brighter than this town of rusting trucks and faded storefronts, and I knew, deep down, that if I didn't find a way to talk to her, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. The next morning, I made sure I was back at Marley's Market. Not to buy anything, though I grabbed a bottle of Coke just to look less obvious, but to see if she'd show up again. She did. She came out with a paper bag in her arms, struggling with the weight of it. I didn't think, I just moved. "Here, let me help you with that," I said, stepping forward. She blinked at me, surprised, then smiled, the kind of smile that felt like it was meant for someone better than me. "Thanks," she said. Her voice was soft, careful. "It's heavier than it looks." I took the bag from her, and we started walking toward the parking lot. She pointed out her car, an old beige Volvo that had definitely seen better days. "I'm Ethan," I said, as I loaded the bag into her trunk. "Grace," she replied. "Grace." Finally, I had her name. I didn't know then what she would come to mean to me. How her laugh would become the soundtrack of my days, how her absence would hollow me out. I didn't know the mistakes I'd make, the choices that would cost me more than I ever thought I could lose. All I knew in that moment was that I wanted to see her again. And that wanting would be the start of everything. That name stuck in my chest the whole ride home, like a song I couldn't get out of my head. I kept replaying the way she'd said it, not rushed, not dismissive, just matter of fact. Grace. It fit her too well, like the universe had chosen it on purpose. I told myself I'd probably never see her again. That's what I do sometimes, lower my expectations so I don't end up disappointed. But Maplewood wasn't the kind of town that let people disappear into the crowd. New faces always found their way back around, and sure enough, a week later, I ran into her again. It was Saturday evening, the kind of summer night when the sun hangs on just a little longer than it should. My buddy Jake Tanner had convinced me to go to the county fairgrounds on the edge of town. There was live music, cheap beer, and food trucks that charged double what they should. I wasn't really in the mood, but Jake had been on my case about getting out more. He said I spent too much time hauling junk with his uncle's landscaping crew and not enough time actually living. "Man, you're 22, Jake said as we walked past the rows of booths. "You're supposed to be screwing up, not playing it safe." I was about to remind him that playing it safe was the only way to pay bills around here, when I spotted her. Grace. She was standing near the Ferris wheel with another girl, a petite brunette I didn't recognize. Grace had her hair down this time, loose waves catching the orange glow of the sunset. She wore jeans and a simple white t-shirt, nothing fancy, but she looked like she could have been pulled out of a magazine. "Yo, Ethan," Jake said, following my gaze. "Who's that?" I swallowed. "New in town. Her name's Grace." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Grace, huh? You gonna stand here staring, or you gonna go talk to her?" I told myself it was a bad idea, that she probably didn't even remember me from the grocery store. But my feet didn't listen. "Hey," I said when I reached her. My voice came out steadier than I felt. She looked up, startled at first, then recognition flickered across her face. "Ethan, right? From Marley's." The fact that she remembered me sent a jolt through my chest. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "You settling in okay? Maplewood can be a lot." She laughed, and God, I wanted to bottle that sound. That's one way to put it. Definitely quieter than Chicago. "Chicago?" I asked. "Big change." "Yeah. My mom wanted somewhere slower. Said she was tired of the noise. So here we are." The brunette at her side nudged her with an elbow. Grace introduced her as Emily, a cousin visiting for the summer. Emily gave me a once-over, then smiled politely, like she'd already judged me and filed me under small-town boy. We talked for a few minutes about the fair, about how Maplewood's idea of live music was always a local country band that knew 3 songs. Grace was easy to talk to. She asked questions, listened, smiled in a way that made you feel like you were worth her time. At some point, Jake reappeared with 2 beers and gave me one, then nodded toward Grace. "You wanna ride the Ferris wheel? Best view in town." Grace hesitated, glancing at Emily, but Emily waved her off. "Go. I'll grab us funnel cakes." So just like that, Grace and I were climbing into one of the rickety cars, the metal creaking under us. The operator, a guy I recognized from high school, slammed the bar shut, and we began our slow rise into the sky. The fair spread out below us, strings of lights, the smell of popcorn and fried dough drifting up with the warm breeze. From up there, Maplewood didn't look so small. "Beautiful, huh?" I said, nodding at the horizon. Grace looked out, her eyes distant. "Yeah. It's different. Peaceful, I guess. But sometimes it feels like the walls are closing in. Like everyone knows your business before you even do." I laughed. "That's Maplewood for you. Secrets don't last long here." She tilted her head toward me, curious. "And what about you? You like it here?" I hesitated. That was the thing about Grace. Even then, she made me want to tell the truth, not just the version of it I usually gave people. "I don't know," I admitted. "It's home, but sometimes I feel stuck. Like the world's moving on without me." She studied me for a moment, then smiled softly. "I get that." The car jolted as the wheel stopped at the very top, leaving us suspended above the town. The sun had slipped lower now, streaks of pink and purple stretching across the sky. For a moment, it was just the 2 of us, the whole town spread out beneath our feet. And in that stillness, I felt something shift again, the same way it had outside Marley's market. Grace turned her face toward me, and in her eyes I saw both mystery and something familiar, like maybe we were already connected in ways I couldn't explain. And that's when I knew this girl wasn't just passing through my life. She was going to change it. After that night at the fair, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Grace had this way of sticking to your thoughts, like a song you didn't know the lyrics to but hummed anyway. I told myself it was just a crush, but even then, deep down, I knew it was more. I started noticing her everywhere. Not in a creepy way, at least I hoped not, but Maplewood wasn't exactly a place with endless distractions. You saw people. You ran into them at the post office, at the diner, at the single-screen movie theater that still charged $5 for a ticket. And Grace? She seemed to float into my orbit every few days. One afternoon, I was mowing lawns on the west side of town, sweat dripping down my back, when I spotted her on the porch of the old Miller house. She was sitting cross-legged with a notebook, scribbling furiously. When she noticed me, she raised her hand in a shy wave. I killed the mower, wiped my forehead, and walked over. "Hey," I said, nodding at the notebook. Homework? She laughed. No, just writing. It helps me think. Writing what? Stories, mostly. Sometimes poems. Sometimes just whatever's in my head. She shrugged, but there was a light in her eyes when she talked about it. I leaned on the porch railing. So you're a writer, huh? Trying to be, she said. What about you? What do you do when you're not rescuing strangers with grocery bags? I chuckled. Work, mostly. Landscaping, construction. Whatever pays. Nothing glamorous. Doesn't have to be glamorous, she said softly. Sometimes simple is good. The way she said it made me want to believe her. That turned into a routine. I'd find excuses to walk past her house after work, and more often than not, she'd be on that porch. Sometimes we'd talk for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. I learned that her mom worked nights at the clinic in town. That Grace had left behind friends in Chicago she didn't keep in touch with much anymore. That she liked coffee but hated sweet tea, which made me laugh because in Ohio that was practically a crime. In return, I told her about my dad leaving, about my mom working double shifts, about how sometimes I felt like I was spinning my wheels. She listened in a way that made me feel seen. Like my life wasn't just a collection of small-town cliches but something worth hearing. One evening, near the end of July, I was sitting on her porch steps while she perched on the railing above me. The air was heavy with the smell of cut grass and honeysuckle. Do you ever think about leaving? She asked suddenly. Leaving Maplewood? Yeah. Just packing up, starting somewhere new. Anywhere. All the time, I admitted. But I never do. Feels like I owe it to Mom to stay, you know? She's given up so much already. Grace nodded, quiet for a while. Then she whispered, almost to herself, sometimes I think staying somewhere you don't belong hurts more than leaving the people you love. I looked up at her, wanting to ask what she meant, but she just smiled faintly and changed the subject. That night, lying in bed, I kept hearing her words over and over. The first time she came to my place was in August. Mom had invited her and her mother over for dinner, saying it was neighborly. I spent the whole afternoon cleaning our tiny house, hiding the stack of overdue bills on the counter, making sure the fan in my room actually worked. When they arrived, Grace looked around with curious eyes, like she was trying to memorize every detail. My mom instantly loved her. I could see it in the way she fussed over her, piling her plate with mashed potatoes and fried chicken. Halfway through the meal, Grace excused herself to the porch, and I followed. This is nice, she said, sitting on the swing. Your mom's, she's warm. I like that. She likes you too, I told her. She glanced at me, a little smile tugging at her lips. And you? What about me? Do you like me? The question caught me off guard. I froze, heart pounding in my ears. Yeah, I said finally, my voice rough. I do. Her smile widened just a fraction, then she looked away, staring out into the dark yard. Good, she whispered. For the first time, I let myself believe something real might be happening between us. I didn't know it then, but that summer, those porch talks, that Ferris wheel ride, that dinner on a humid August night was planting something in both of us. Something that would grow, beautiful and complicated, and eventually threaten to tear us apart. But in those moments, all I knew was her laughter, her questions, her presence. And that was enough. The first time we called it a date, it wasn't anything fancy. Maplewood didn't offer much in the way of fine dining, unless you counted the Rusty Fork, which was basically just a diner with tablecloths. Instead, I took her to the drive-in movie theater out past Route 9. The place hadn't changed since my parents were teenagers. Gravel lot, speakers that half-worked, and a snack stand that sold popcorn soaked in butter and Coke so flat it might as well have been syrup, but to me, it felt right. We sat in the back of my old Chevy truck, blanket spread across the bed, a couple of sodas between us. Grace wore that same faded sundress I'd first seen her in, and when she climbed up beside me, brushing her hair behind her ear, I swear I forgot how to breathe. In the movie was some action flick neither of us paid attention to. Instead, we talked, the kind of talking that doesn't feel like effort but like falling into a rhythm you didn't know you already shared. She told me about Chicago, the crowded streets, the late-night coffee shops where she'd sit for hours scribbling in her notebook, the way the city pulsed like it had a heartbeat of its own. And I told her about Maplewood, Friday night football games, summer bonfires out at Miller's Creek, the way the whole town smelled like rain when the fields got wet. It's so different, she whispered, looking up at the stars. Here, you can actually see the sky. Back home, the lights drowned it all out. I followed her gaze. Guess I never thought about it like that. It's just, always been there. That's what I mean, she said. You grow up with something, you stop noticing it. But when you come from somewhere else, she paused, her voice softening. It feels magical. Her hand brushed mine then, maybe by accident, maybe not. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. Slowly, her fingers curled around mine, and for a while, the world felt impossibly simple. After that night, we were inseparable. We walked the back roads at dusk, fireflies sparking around us like tiny lanterns. We sat by the creek skipping rocks, her laughter carrying over the water. She came to my jobs sometimes, bringing iced coffee when I was sweating through hours of mowing lawns or hauling bricks. Grace had this way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary. A trip to the grocery store became an adventure. A late-night milkshake at the diner felt like a secret shared only between us, but the thing about small towns is, everyone notices. And soon enough, whispers followed us everywhere. Ethan and that Whitmore girl, Mrs. Duffy, would murmur to her friend at the post office, they're glued together. Someone would say at the diner. Most people smiled about it, but some, the kind of folks who never left Maplewood and resented anyone who weren't so kind. She's just passing through, one guy told me at the gas station. Girls like that don't stick around for boys like you. I laughed it off, but the words lodged deep. One night, in early September, Grace and I sat on the hood of my truck out by the old railroad tracks. The air was cooling, the first hints of fall sneaking in. Promise me something, she said suddenly, her tone serious. What? Promise me you won't stay here forever. That you'll, I don't know, see the world. Do something bigger than Maplewood? I frowned. Why would you say that? Because I can see it in you, she said. You're meant for more than this place. I shook my head. Grace, my mom's here. My life's here. I can't just pack up and leave. She looked at me then, her eyes searching mine like she was trying to memorize me. Maybe not now. But someday. Promise me you'll at least try. I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to say yes, to give her what she wanted. But another part of me, the part tethered to Maplewood, stayed silent. She sighed, resting her head against my shoulder. You don't have to promise, she whispered. I just don't want you to end up like everyone else here. Stuck. Her words echoed in the night, long after the crickets had quieted. It was around then that I realized Grace was carrying something inside her, a weight I couldn't see but could feel in the way she sometimes drifted off mid-conversation, staring at something far away, and though I didn't know it yet, that weight would shape everything between us. Fall came quickly that year. One week the air was thick and heavy, and the next it carried that sharp bite that made you dig sweatshirts out of the closet. Maplewood always looked its best in October, leaves burning red and gold, the town draped in the kind of colors people in bigger cities only saw on postcards. Grace loved it. She'd walk with me down Main Street, her scarf pulled tight, pointing at the pumpkins lined up outside Marley's Market like it was a scene from a storybook. She made me see my town in a way I never had before, like maybe it was beautiful, not just ordinary. But there were moments, even then, when her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Moments when she'd go quiet, as if her mind had wandered someplace I couldn't follow. One Saturday, we went to the high school football game. In Maplewood, those games weren't just games, they were community gatherings, half the town showing up whether they cared about football or not. Grace hadn't been before, so I thought it would be fun. She seemed excited at first, clutching a hot chocolate, laughing when she realized the whole town cheered like the Super Bowl every time someone scored. But halfway through the second quarter, she grew quiet. She kept staring at the crowd, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her cup. You okay? I asked. She forced a smile. Yeah. Just, a lot of people. Something about the way she said it didn't sit right, but I didn't push. Grace wasn't the kind of person you could pry open. She gave what she wanted, when she wanted. Later that night, after I walked her home, I lingered on her porch with her. The air was cold enough that our breaths clouded in front of us. Thanks for tonight, she said softly. It was nice. Just nice? I teased. She rolled her eyes, but then her face softened. Okay. More than nice. Better than I thought it would be. There was a pause, and then she looked at me, her expression suddenly serious. You ever feel like you don't belong? Like you're living in someone else's life? The question hit me sideways. Sometimes, I admitted. Like I'm waiting for something to start, but I don't know what. She nodded slowly, like my words meant more to her than I realized. Me too. Before I could ask what she meant, she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't dramatic, no fireworks, no music swelling in the background. Just the soft press of her lips against mine, gentle and certain, like she'd been waiting for the right moment. When she pulled back, she whispered, "Good night, Ethan," and slipped inside, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. After that, things shifted between us. We were no longer just two people who talked on porches and rode Ferris wheels. We were something else now, something fragile but real. We started sneaking into the library after hours. Grace somehow sweet-talked the janitor into leaving the side door unlocked. She'd sit on the floor between the shelves, reading aloud from her favorite books, while I pretended to follow but really just watched her lips move. We'd drive out past the cornfields, park under the stars, and talk about everything and nothing until the horizon started to lighten. Sometimes she'd laugh so hard she had to cover her face, and I'd swear I'd never heard anything so perfect. Other times, she'd grow quiet, staring out the window like she was afraid of something she couldn't name, and I started to wonder, what had she left behind in Chicago? What had driven her and her mom to Maplewood? Whenever I asked, she'd smile, change the subject, or kiss me until I forgot the question. But questions like that don't stay buried forever. One chilly evening, sitting on the porch swing at her house, I finally asked again. "Grace," I said, my voice careful, "why did you guys move here?" "Really?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. She just traced her finger along the wooden armrest, her face unreadable. Finally, she said, "Sometimes the past gets too heavy. Sometimes you have to leave it behind before it crushes you." That was all. No explanation, no details. Just that. I wanted to press, but the look in her eyes stopped me. It was the look of someone standing at the edge of a cliff, holding on with both hands. So I just nodded, even though my chest ached with the need to know more. I didn't realize it then, but that was the beginning of a divide between us, small at first, like a hairline crack in glass. Invisible unless you looked close, but over time, cracks spread. And once they do, it's only a matter of when they break. By October, we were falling into a rhythm that felt like a dream. Days blurred into nights, and nights into mornings where I'd wake up still tasting her kiss, wondering how I'd gotten so lucky. But dreams don't last forever. It started small, little moments when our differences showed. One Saturday, Grace asked if I'd take her into Columbus. She wanted to see a bookstore she'd heard about, a cafe that stayed open until midnight, a music venue where some indie band she liked was playing. Columbus was only an hour and a half away, but to me, it might as well have been another world. "Maybe next time," I said, scratching the back of my neck. "I got work tomorrow morning, and the truck's acting up again." Her smile faltered. "You always have work tomorrow morning. Somebody's gotta pay the bills." She didn't argue, but the ride home was quiet. And that silence sat heavy between us. Another night, she asked if I'd ever thought about going back to school, maybe leaving Maplewood for good. I laughed it off. "I'm not the college type." Her brow furrowed. "That's not true. You're smart, Ethan. You just don't give yourself enough credit." "Grace, I barely scraped through community college. And besides, my mom needs me here." Her jaw tightened, and she looked away. "Sometimes I think you use your mom as an excuse." That stung more than I wanted to admit. It came to a head in early November. We were parked by Miller's Creek, the same spot where we'd spent so many nights just talking. But this time, there was no laughter, no easy conversation. Grace sat with her knees pulled up to her chest, staring at the water. "I can't do this forever," she said finally. I blinked. "Do what?" "This," she gestured vaguely. "Maplewood. The same streets, the same people, the same conversations. I feel like I'm suffocating." The word cut deep. "Suffocating?" I repeated. She winced. "I don't mean with you. Just with this place. I need more, Ethan. I need to know there's something out there beyond this town." I swallowed hard. "And what about me?" Her eyes softened. "You're the only thing keeping me here." For a second, those words filled me with warmth. But then the other meaning hit me. If I was the only thing holding her here, then what happened when holding on wasn't enough? I didn't have an answer. Neither did she. We sat in silence, listening to the creek gurgle in the dark, the weight of unspoken things pressing down on us. That night, when I dropped her off, she kissed me long and hard, like she was trying to memorize the shape of me. but behind her eyes, I saw the truth. She was already looking beyond Maplewood, and I was terrified she wouldn't take me with her.